Welcome back. All right, so I want to do another one of those videos where I look at the state of wrestling, and I'm going to talk a bit about AEW. I'm going to talk a bit about WWE as well. I did watch King and Queen of the Ring. I thought it was a good pay-per-view. I've seen people saying, "Oh, AEW's was way better." King and Queen of the Ring is not one of the major pay-per-views. Double or Nothing is absolutely one of the major, if not the major, pay-per-view for AEW. So it's kind of an apples to oranges thing. But what's notable is on NXT this week, suddenly you have Jordan Grace on there, and so clearly WWE is working with TNA currently, and there's a crossover, and this just happens to be at the same time as Forbidden Doors getting wrapped up for AEW. I do think it's interesting to see TNA having some crossover with WWE. They, of course, had crossover not too long ago with AEW. At least doesn't feel like it was that long ago. It did feel natural, the crossover between TNA and AEW. We'll see how natural it feels between WWE and TNA. I did think Jordan Grace, or Jordan Grace, got a very nice reaction. I thought they built her up nicely. And so, yeah, we'll see. One thing is with Triple H in control, I don't think we're going to see people from other companies coming in just to eat the pin and just lose. I don't get the feeling he's going to do that. If you want this relationship to be a profitable one, you're not going to want to do that, right? I've always thought wrestling companies should work with each other more because how much dream booking have we done as fans for decades and had matches we wanted to see we never got to see? So the pluses to me, and I'll go through the pluses first. Well, I'll go back and forth. We'll do it that way because the way that I wrote this, it kind of requires me to go back and forth since some of these kind of counter each other a bit. Christopher Daniels being named as general manager, and they're not calling him general manager, but essentially he's the GM for the show. First off, I mentioned this in the other video I did today. The fact that he looks so much like Adam Pearce threw me for a loop. It did. And then I saw it in the comment section under the Ups and Downs video on What Culture Wrestling, and I thought it was really funny that somebody's like, he looks like Adam Pearce if you put glasses on him. He didn't even need the glasses. He just looks like Adam Pearce. He had the blue shirt and the black pants, and I was like, is that Adam Pearce? Did he defect and go to AEW? And so I think this can work. This is exactly what I said I wanted to see from them, which was Tony Khan not being on the air making decisions. I don't want to see Tony Khan coming out with a microphone like, you guys, now you're in a handicap match against these guys, and no. He shouldn't be an on-air character at all. Christopher Daniels, we know he can wrestle. He's been in the business for such a long time, and we also know he can talk really well on the microphone. He is excellent at cutting a promo. Christopher Daniels as GM is an absolutely fantastic move by AEW. The injuries are one thing that I do think is a problem for AEW. So Edge hurt himself in that match. I look at some of these spots, and I know that people get really excited about these spots. And I know that one of the most famous matches of all time is Undertaker Mankind, and Mankind gets dumped off the top of the Hell in the Cell, and he goes through the table at ringside. If you're booking that now, that doesn't happen. Not in WWE, probably in AEW. One of the reasons it wouldn't happen in WWE now is because WWE learned their lesson. During that time of the Hardys and all the hardcore matches, guys were getting hurt all the time. So what it does is it hurts the storylines, and it hurts what you're trying to build towards. And for Adam Copeland, clearly there's a big build that's been going on, and now that feud is kind of just done. So it leaves Malachi Black and the House of Black kind of in need for a reset. And again, I'm not saying they shouldn't have had the match, but the spot where Copeland gets hurt at 50 years of age, that'll hurt. I'm 51. Yeah, there's no. Not that I would have been jumping off of a cage when I was 21, but definitely not doing it at my age. It's just there's no way. And it's something that with them they've had this problem. So like MJF is coming back from injury, Adam Cole's coming back from injury. Both of them are absolutely fantastic over with the fans. You need to make sure that these guys aren't getting hurt as often as they are, because it really hurts the flow of the program and the feuds. And so you've got to make sure you're protecting your wrestlers. I know that there's fans who don't like certain moves are banned in WWE, and why is this banned? That's part of the reason why, for safety reasons. I absolutely love the Casino Gauntlet match. So going back over to the plus, again, I'll piggyback a little bit on Simon Miller's idea here. That needs to be a pay-per-view match. Not only that, but Casino Gauntlet, Just have it every time they go to Vegas. In fact, Vegas is such a fantastic place to hold a wrestling event. I would say go there like 3 times a year for wrestling events. Like, I don't think that would be a problem. And of course, Casino Gauntlet, casinos are all right there in Vegas. But it is such a fun match, and I think it needs more build. We'll talk about that too, though. But yeah, that's a great matchup, and I watched the first Casino Gauntlet match they had on Dynamite. I really enjoyed that one too. So hopefully we don't see this a lot, and hopefully it becomes a pay-per-view thing where the winner of the Casino Gauntlet match gets a title shot, or gets a contract to challenge for anything that they want, any title they want, anybody they want, right? Maybe a guy wins it. Maybe Eddie Kingston wins it. He's like, I don't care about the title. I want that guy. And he picks somebody he's feuding with who's been trying to duck him, right? I do think there needs to be more build for matches. Like, there's great matches in AEW, and I understand that, like, a lot of the audience is going to be the same from one week to the other, but they don't build these matches up. Almost every time that I watch an episode of Dynamite, there's a match that I'm thinking, wow, I had no idea that match was going to happen, and there's nothing. And I think that with some of the stars they have, they should definitely build that up a little bit more. Give some more time. Let it breathe. Say these guys are going to meet in 2 weeks, and then just really promote the heck out of it. Forbidden Door is going to provide some good matchups, so that's definitely a plus for me right now with what's going on in AEW. I mean, they're not going to be long-term feuds, but this is kind of an echo of WCW as well. One thing I've noticed with AEW lately, it has really started to feel like WCW more than it did. And it always had somewhat of that air, right? It does feel like it's more based in the South, and that's something that WCW had going for it. But yeah, AEW started to really feel that way. Forbidden Door reminds me of when WCW would have, New Japan wrestlers coming in and all that. And again, I hope that this isn't just a matter of AEW wrestlers going over against the New Japan foes that they're going to have coming in. Keep it as close to even as possible. Make sure you book it so both companies look pretty darn good. They don't advertise the big matches in advance. So again, I mentioned need more build. And also, the other part of needing more build is when you start a feud, and maybe taking a little bit more time. For instance, last night Sky Blue eats the pin. I know she's going to continue the feud with Mercedes Moné, but we've already now seen Mercedes Moné get the victory over her. So Sky Blue's got a tremendous amount of talent. I think a feud between her and Mercedes Moné would go a long way. The other thing with that too, though, is Sky's been a heel, and so is Mercedes a heel or a face. If she's going to be a tweener, how are they going to book that? I do think that, tweeners are a thing in that company because Blackpool Combat Club and all. But yeah, I think more build for these matches, more advanced notice. You want to make it feel like it's a big event. This is a big match. This is what we've been building towards, which WWE's got kind of figured out. Not in every feud, not all the time, but they've kind of got that figured out. Like, I'm kind of excited for Clash at the Castle to see is Drew going to win against Priest? Is he not? Damian Priest, I think, has done well for himself as champ. So whoever wins there, I think it's going to be hard to argue that it's not the right result, and that's what you want to see as a wrestling fan. Will Ospreay is definitely a plus. Ospreay is a megastar, basically, in wrestling. I don't know if he's going to reach those heights in AEW, but I know that if you get Will Ospreay against MJF in a feud, and it would have to be one that would take place over a few months, really build it up, you could print money with that matchup. MJF's return this week, and I don't have it on the board, but yeah, you could hear that crowd was red hot. Everybody loves MJF. And he can go out there and say all the same things he said as a heel, and fans will still cheer him. And that's when you know that a wrestler has arrived. The fans don't care what he's saying or she's saying. They're going to cheer them no matter what. MJF's in that category. So you could absolutely have him and Will Ospreay have just a fantastic match. Right now, of course, Swerve's the champ. I think they're doing okay at this point with Swerve as the champ. He's not. It doesn't feel like his feuds are the main event feuds, though. But again, that's a WWE thing we saw when CM Punk was champ, and we saw that when Bret Hart was champ in WWE too. So it's something that definitely the other company's done, but I've never been a big fan of it. The world champ should always be the main event. He should be the one that everyone is gunning for. So that's one thing where I like Swerve as champ. I think he's a great wrestler. I think they could do more with him. I think they could build him up a heck of a lot more than they have. And I do think one area that AEW is kind of lacking is the matches they have, and getting back to the hardcore stuff and a lot of the wrestling stuff. It caters to the AEW audience. Completely, totally fine. You're catering to the AEW audience. However, they're not making inroads with mainstream audiences. And this is the thing. If you're going to end up having a company that's really, really profitable and is seen as, and I don't want to say a threat to WWE, because let's be honest, both companies, we want them both to be profitable and doing well. But as a really legitimate, I guess, competitor, a legitimate option for wrestling fans who may not be that hardcore audience, I just don't feel like they have that right now. They've flirted with that at times. One example I'd use with WWE is Logan Paul. Logan Paul is a mega celebrity outside of WWE, and AEW would be smart, I think, to find somebody. Not David Arquette. No, that's not like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But bringing somebody in who's got like mainstream recognition would be huge. I mean, obviously, the biggest catch they could ever get would be if somehow they had John Cena come in, even for just a few matches. But that's not going to happen. Cena's WWE through and through. But something of that nature, just somebody popping their head in and going, hey, and being that megastar. Stone Cold coming out just dropping somebody with a stunner, something. And I think something like that would go a long way towards reversing what's been dropping ratings, although we'll talk about that in a minute too. The pros too, the matches are consistently good to great. And so for me, when I'm watching a match that's a great match, and then I'm thinking to myself, okay, there wasn't much build for this match, and they didn't even announce this match, I'm impressed with the wrestling going on in the ring, but I'm also frustrated for said wrestlers because I feel like, with the right build and the right attention, this could have been really, really exciting. This could have had a lot of attention and a lot of eyeballs on it. And otherwise, it's going to be seen as a really good match. And if it's not part of a feud, then there you go. You got a really good match, and then it's just done. And you move on to the next thing, which can be fine at times, but it feels like it happens a lot. One thing that I worry about with AEW is, again, going back to the WCW comparison, they do tend to run guys through feuds kind of quickly. And so one mistake WCW made back in the day was that they would run through these matches. You get dream matches every week on Nitro, but then you run out, or you end up repeating yourself and having more of those, matches where fans are like, I just saw that. So that is one thing to keep an eye on, because it does feel like sometimes they rush through some of these matchups. And so that comes back to how I don't think the feuds or the builds of said feuds are quite where they are for the WWE. I've seen people say that, AEW is still kind of new, and WWE's been in the business a long time. AEW, this is 5 years now they've been around, and there are a lot of guys backstage who are wrestling people who've been in the wrestling industry for so long. So I do think that this is something that can be fixed from within. I've heard, Tony Khan's all over the booking. I don't think it would hurt if he gave some of those booking decisions over to someone else and let them run the show. And I don't think that would necessarily hurt. Not Vince Russo. No, we want the WCW comparisons to end there. But I'm sure that of the guys in the back, that there has to be somebody who can book well and not necessarily just book for, I could win this match. No, not that kind of booker. But that's the important part of a wrestling program, is making sure that everything's booked well. It all makes sense. It all transitions. So 1 week should feel like it continues all the plot lines from the week before. And there's sort of a stop and start quality, which again can come back to the injuries, but that's part of it. So last night's episode apparently drew 787,000 viewers. That's up from the 713,000 last week, and they were in the 600,000s the week before that. Now, the average this year is 779,000. Now, I don't think they had the kind of competition for viewership last night that they had the previous week or the week before that. But 779,000 is down. The first 22 weeks of 2023, they drew 884,000 fans per game. Or per game. See, there's the hockey and the basketball and all that in my brain. Per week. And so they've dropped 105,000 viewers per week, which is a bit of an issue because their TV deal's almost up with Warner Brothers Discovery. And there's rumors that Tony Khan's not happy with the numbers that he's been getting from Warner Brothers Discovery, but they're coming out of their exclusivity part of the contract, where Tony Khan can talk to other networks and see what the interest is. The next TV deal could be absolutely huge. It could make this company, next level successful, or it could be tough. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of money is being offered. Which networks are going to be interested in the product. Again, the ratings have not been where they were a few years ago. It's not that long ago. They were drawing 1 million viewers per week. And so they want to get back to at least those numbers. And, of course, you want to be higher. If you want to make this so it's a competition, you're going to need to really exponentially increase the viewership of the product. The TV deal, though, is really the key thing to keep an eye on from here. There's also all the rights deals for the rest of the world, but that U.S. TV deal is absolutely huge. If they don't get a big raise there, and Tony Khan's reportedly looking for more money from that, that could be tough for their bottom line going forward. I'm not saying then they'd go under, but you have to wonder how many wrestlers can you employ if the company starts seeing a downturn in their revenues. That's where we start seeing some of the men and women leaving the company, right? Because just they wouldn't have the money. It'd be budgetary constraints. But it is going to be interesting to see how this all goes from here. So to me, there's some positives with what's going on in AEW right now. There's some negatives as well. To me, the EVP storyline still not hitting, but the fact that Christopher Daniels is in as GM now, I think that's going to work. I know he's not labeled as a GM, but it's the same role that GMs have played in WWE. I don't have a problem with the GM. I think once you get into the power trips that WWE had for years, it can get really, really stressful. Not stressful, disappointing, and just frustrating. Frustrating is a better way of putting it. Frustrating to watch a product where you're like, I'm kind of tired of Vince McMahon interrupting all the time and Stephanie McMahon making people do this. Shane McMahon, when all the McMahons were out just getting their fingers in everything, it was a tough product to watch. And when you're just seeing constantly every face would be, here comes the authority. Oh, not again. So I think with bringing in Christopher Daniels, you're not going to see that kind of dynamic. I think that's why it's good that he's not a bad guy in this. And now what you can do is you can take that EVP storyline, you can have it run its course. And on air, honestly, the best thing they could do on air is have a storyline where the EVPs have essentially been bought out, or they're no longer EVPs for whatever reason. They can still be EVPs backstage. That's not a problem. But have it in storyline that, okay, now they're no longer EVPs, and they just, in the ring, they're wrestlers the same as everybody else. Or maybe they expand. Maybe they add members. We'll see. Because this could either go an authority direction, or it could go an NWO direction. I don't think it does. Because, again, who would they be why would they war with AEW, the company they're executive vice presidents of? That'll make a lot of sense. But here we are. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Especially if you saw Dynamite this week. What did you think? I saw parts of it. I thought it was good. I thought it was good at points. And again, pointing out the GM thing, because I watched that. And I will admit, they got me for a moment there with we're going to give Jack Perry the international title or TNT title. And I was like, oh no, don't do that. No, that's so NWO. If they just hand the belt to their buddy, and that's where Christopher Daniels came out and said no. And I was like, okay, all right, don't do that. Whatever you do, that's not what you do. Anything else, fine. Don't put a wig on Santino Marella and call him Santina. Okay, that is still better than just handing a belt over to somebody and going, we like you, so here's your belt. We feel like you're the guy. It gets instant heat with the crowd, but it devalues that belt by 100%. The belt means nothing when you just hand it to somebody. Finger poke of doom and all that. means nothing at that point. And then you've devalued the belt. Good luck building it back up. So it is something to keep an eye on with them from here. But yeah, I think the right people are champions right now. I do worry about the burial of Willow Nightingale that we saw too, where she loses clean in the ring to Mercedes Moné and then gets backstabbed after the match. I'm like, man, that's kind of rough. She got beat up twice. But again, for the storyline we'll see, and Chris Statlander as a heel, I'm a fan of that. I think she'll be very, very good at that. I think she's already shown in this week's Dynamite she's going to be good in that role. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.